but I've lost 26 inches. And I know that the listeners will have to convert that. And then about 14 pounds. Obviously, it's just to say that my cycle has always been very pathological. Recently, so probably 6-7 months into the program, my cycle has completely changed. And so I think, like, instead of reaching for that next material thing that you feel like is gonna satisfy that void temporarily, to look even deeper. And that is what this program has done for me.
I'm Kitty Bloomfield, co-founder of New Strength and Saturée, creator of pro-metabolic food supplements and seriously saturated skincare. And today I'm joined by one of our beautiful clients, Paige. She lives in Hawaii, which is so cool. And she's 37, she's married, she's got one child, and she does a lot of things, don't you?
Yes.
You've got a podcast and a practice, and maybe you can just quickly just talk a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Okay.
Quickly, yeah.
So I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and I have an integrative wellness clinic in Honolulu. It's a mixed modality facility. And I also am a brand founder of traditional Chinese facial tools that complement my treatments. And I'm a health justice educator within the field. I also have a podcast. And as Kitty mentioned, I have a 9-year-old son.
Cool. Well, welcome to the podcast. Do you want to just start by telling the listeners a little bit more about your journey prior to joining the program? You know, what were the issues you were suffering with? Basically, what led you to the program?
Yes. So I'm sure I have so much in common with a lot of your clients and the women that you've had on this podcast. But I was a young competitive gymnast from an early age. And that had a huge influence on how I viewed body and perfectionism. And already at a very young age, I was starting to restrict foods in order to perform as a competitive athlete. And so that was from a young age. And then that really led into burnout as a teenager and things like delayed menstruation or amenorrhea. I really didn't finish out puberty until college, when I finally started to eat a substantial amount of food or enough food to menstruate. And then in my early 20s, I developed Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And probably about 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with PCOS. So a lot of these metabolic and endocrine issues that, I hear women and your clients that come in with similar things. So I also have this type of a background.
Cool. And what were your goals coming into the program?
I didn't have a lot of expectations because I was just so open and so ready. And what I loved was that it felt really sustainable. It felt really healthy. I took a look at how some of the women looked in the program, and I just kept having the sense of, oh, these women look so strong. And when I look at health, I also look at resilience. And I'm like, they look very resilient. They look like they can weather life and adversity. And so I really wanted to get into it just to feel stronger and to feel like I could build up stamina and endurance and, weather the things that life throws your way. So that was really the first thing that attracted me.
Yeah, I love that. That is so true, because there's always going to be stress in our life. I think it's unreasonable to think that you're going to live in this bubble, but yeah, it's just being resilient enough to cope with the stress. I think a normal amount of stress, not crazy stress. And how long have you been in the program now?
So I'm about 9.5 months in. This is my third go at the 16 weeks.
Wow. That's so prettier. I'm kidding. And can you talk about the results that you've seen since being in the program?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the measurable results, and then I'll talk about more of the internal aspects, the spiritual, mental, emotional aspects. So first, I was just looking at my summary before I came on here, but I've lost 26 inches. And I know that the listeners will have to convert that. And then about 14 pounds, which is probably close to 6 kilos, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. So those, and as you know, with the work that we do with Recomposer, it truly feels like that's all fat that I'm talking about, right? So it's just like 14 pounds of mostly fat, 26 inches of mostly fat that have come off of my body. And it's funny because I told my husband before I started, and we looked at body fat percentage, and I started around 40%. And I told him, like, I'm like an A5 piece of Wagyu. And he was like, oh, because that sounds like such a high percentage. And I think about now, I'm like in the high 20s, maybe 27, 28%. I forgot to look at that. So that's a huge difference right there. So that's that part. And then the progress in the other ways that have been so much more profound for me have been, well, first, my menstrual cycle. I always had dysmenorrhea. For me, that meant really painful periods where I had gone to the ER twice before, not knowing if I concurrently had like appendicitis or something, or an organ rupture, because that's how excruciating the pain was. I've had, like severe clotting and just really horrendous periods, blacking out, vomiting. One time when I was living abroad, I had passed out on the street, and someone had dragged me underneath a tree, and I woke up underneath a tree because that's how much pain I was in. So that obviously is just to say that my cycle has always been very pathological. And recently, so probably 7 months into the program, my cycle has completely changed. It's really, the pain is very tolerable. It's very manageable. It feels like a really healthy amount. I mean, of course, when you menstruate, you will feel something because of the uterus needing to contract. But I don't have to be on pain medicine, and it's a really nice bleed. It's honestly been incredible. I've had a lot more endurance. Like, we went on a vacation, and I mentioned this on the Facebook page, but we took our son to Disneyland, and we had these 16-hour days. We were clocking about 30,000 steps. And typically before the program, I mean, I would run out of gas within, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours. I'd have sugar crashes, metabolic crashes, mood issues. I'd be so exhausted, I'd have to just exit the family fun. And this trip was a huge measure of progress because I was able to go through the entire day on my feet. I stuck as much to the program as I could with eating regularly, keeping blood sugar stable, but just being able to be there and be present and enjoy that time with our 9-year-old it really showed me how far I had come. I could talk about more things, but I don't want to keep going on, Kitty, if there's other questions.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I would say a big thing for me before the program is I was so thirsty all the time. And I attributed this partly to my history growing up, having a really traumatic childhood, and always being in a fight or flight state. And being in a fight or flight state can often make people have a very dry mouth because all of their resources are going towards the fight or the flight, or now people understand fawn or freeze. But so I was just so thirsty, so thirsty. And then a few months in with my Coach Nisa, and I couldn't say more amazing things about her, but she had put me on some adrenal cocktails. And this was just to really deeply hydrate me on a cellular level, to help with this type of water metabolism that was irregular for me. And it's just made a world of a difference. I used to have to use the restroom every 30 to 60 minutes. And I just know that minerals and nutrients were running through me because I was overdoing it, but I just couldn't get enough. So that has been incredible to feel like I'm drinking I have about 2 adrenal cocktails a day. And I support, I'm also having orange juice a couple times a day too. So I'm really getting that deeper cellular hydration. And it's been incredible to feel like, wow, I'm finally quenched and I don't need to just constantly be drinking water, constantly using the bathroom.
That's so good. So many amazing results. I love it. And how many calories are you eating?
I'm eating 1971. So 1971.
Nice, nice. And how was it fit in the food with the family?
Mm-hmm. So we only have one, and so we all are on kind of different food schedules because I'm eating every 3 hours. And so sometimes, depending on when I start my day, I might be a little bit off with the rest of the family, but I'll still sit down with everyone at dinner time. That's when we can all be together. But we eat mostly Asian food, Pan-Asian food in Hawaii, and also just within our Asian family. So it's been fine, but I will say that like a lot of the meals before were lots of like stir fries, and that was a little harder for me. It was harder for me to track those macros. I mean, I know I could measure all the ingredients beforehand, put in a recipe, and then weigh out the grams. But for some reason in my mind, I liked it to kind of separate out a little bit.
Yeah.
I say that I changed a bit of my eating, and the family's eating has stayed the same, but that's on me. Like, I don't have to do it that way. It's just the way that my mind thinks. I preferred to piece it all out, but otherwise it would not be a thing if I had chosen to just do it how, what I explained. That's really easy. Weigh it all out, throw it together, pull out the measurements. But just the way that my mind works, I separate everything out.
We got to do what works for you.
Yeah.
And what did you find the most challenging about the program?
I would say the weight training, because I've never been a gym person that was comfortable in the gym. I just never went to the gym for exercise. I was always an athlete, and I always got my exercise through the sports. And so I just was so unfamiliar with equipment and how to use it. And I don't know, it probably was the first couple months, I just had to really like learn my stride in the gym and just become more confident and take a little bit more charge and not be so delicate. I think too, I was surprising myself with my strength, and it was almost a little scary. Like in my head, I would think like, can I really lift that much weight? I would have never thought I could. And so as it was just a completely different mindset, but it's been extremely rewarding to be able to now be in there, be comfortable, be confident, feel like I know where I'm going and what I'm doing. That's been incredible. But that was the hardest thing for me to onboard with.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And what did you enjoy most about the program? What are you enjoying most, I should say?
Okay, for me, I would say, so I had a huge sugar addiction.
Mhm.
And like a true addictive issue where I sought out hypnosis, and I saw several specialists. I was getting into a lot of issues where I was lying around sugar to sneak it in, to find ways to seek it out privately and just indulge and binge with it. And I remember when I was listening to some of the podcasts, people would talk about, oh, I just don't crave that anymore. I'm just okay with a serving. And I remember thinking like, how is that possible? Is that, I just like, I had never thought that that could be true. Even, and so it was almost immediately once I got my macro sorted out and I was put on this plan, that just clicked. And I was like, whoa, actually, I am completely satisfied.
Isn't it crazy?
Or it's
Yeah.
it's
It's like,
crazy.
because I think so many women, I used to think that too. And I remember when I worked with Emma, I'd be like, I've got all these sugar cravings and I'm bad and I can't control them, when just in fact, my body was screaming at me, telling me that I needed more sugar. Like I needed these nutrient dense carbohydrates and sugars. And once I ate them, the cravings went away. And I was like, oh my God.
No, I know, it's really, and I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's because of this and that, and like we try to trick ourselves, like if only I can sort this out, then I won't have to do that. And I'm like, no, it's actually so simple. It's just like I get these macronutrients in, I satisfy myself with like really good fruits and really healthy carbohydrates, and then I really don't need the like mountainous half-gallon tub of ice cream. I'm totally fine with a nice serving at the end of the day. And that's all I really want. And it's just, that has been mind blowing to me because I didn't have to work at that. Like, I didn't have to do mind tricks and continue with hypnosis and try to find ways to lie about what sugar I'm eating or sneaking or hiding. It just was so natural. I was like, oh my gosh, I guess
That
this
is
is what it's
awesome.
like to be balanced.
It's like, maybe I don't have a sugar addiction. Maybe I just need to eat some more bloody sugar. When I say sugar, I'm not saying eat 10 cups of white sugar. It's just, it is amazing that once you start eating more fruit, drinking juice, root vegetables, even like, even actual sugar, like ice cream with sugar and sugar in your coffee, and you actually eat adequate carbs and sugar, nutrient-dense sugars, you're like, it's gone. Yeah, that's the
Yes.
best. I was the same. I didn't do all the hypnosis and stuff, but yeah, I was just the crazy ass binge eater. We could have epic binges too. There's these things in Australia called Jersey caramels. They're like a Woolworths is a shopping, is it like a chain shopping centers? And they're like that, they're old home brand Woolworths. They're just glucose syrup. They're just shit. And I would eat packets of them. Like
Oh
to
my God.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what advice would you give to a woman who was, sitting on the fence about joining? Actually, sorry, do you think you would have got the results you'd gotten without the coaching?
Definitely not. And I would say I can speak to my coach, and I know all of your coaches are excellent from what I've heard. But I felt like Nisa really from the get-go, she was able to meet she's able to do this amazing dance of, okay, how much can I push Paige, but still validate some of her concerns, still empathize with what she's going through, still like see her and where she is right now. And I think a lot of times we skip step one, which is like seeing and hearing someone. And we just go to step two, where we're like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And if you do that, you'll be better. And it's like, well, actually, I need step one first. I need someone to like know me, see me, hear me, validate, empathize, and acknowledge me. And then I'm going to be able to do step two, which is like, okay, so now that you know those things, tell me how I can improve, tell me how I can get better, tell me how I can push things to be more in balance.
Mm.
And so that was amazing because I am sensitive. And so, the funny thing actually I'll admit is when I was first assigned to Nisa, I went on Facebook and I looked her up and I felt so intimidated. I
Ah,
was oh, I was so nervous for her to be my coach because I'm just like, I love this kind of softness, this tenderness. Like I find so much comfort in that type of approach in life. So when I saw her, this like so strong, so beautiful, so empowered, I was just so intimidated. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good fit. And then anyway, I met her and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is just what I needed. Someone who's also been through the trials and tribulations of life and then knows what it's like to have to go through certain things and still come out of it and still be able to push yourself in a way that is not going to break you or, that's just been amazing. And I think that relationship and having that accountability with her as my coach and the way that the program's set up with
mm,
the training videos, the check-ins, the feedback that she gives on video herself with the training and with the check-ins, it just really continues to inspire me to
mm,
keep going and
mm,
keep showing up and keep wanting to be better myself and really become, the strongest version inside and out that I can be. So yeah, without a coach, I mean,
I love it.
and without her, yeah, there's just
She's
no way.
beautiful. Hey, she's beautiful. I love her. I think she's an incredible human on the inside and out. Yeah. Oh, I am so glad that you're loving working with her. Yeah, she's the best. And what advice would you give to a woman who was sitting on the fence about joining the program?
Gosh, I ran through all your questions in my mind from listening to the podcast, and I was like, what am I going to answer for all of those things? Advice wise, so many women talked about how this is it's investing in yourself. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. When it comes to, and I don't want to knock anyone who has priorities in different places, But a lot of time I see women spending so much on external validations, or they're driven by things like, the latest handbag or the best this, the best that, to kind of adorn themselves, but it's not necessarily enriching them on a deeper level that's going to last over time and really affect multiple aspects of their lives. And so I think, like, instead of reaching for that next material thing that you feel like is going to satisfy that void temporarily, to look even deeper. And that is what this program has done for me. And see, like, what fulfills me on a deeper level that's going to sustain me beyond X, Y, and Z that's fleeting. And then of course you can invest in that, because it's well worth more its weight than like the next big designer thing or the next cosmetic procedure or whatever people are doing. And again, no judgment on that. That can be very fulfilling and make people very happy. But I do feel like this is just the long game of cultivating yourself and the longevity of your health and well-being. And so I really advise all women do that if they are able to.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, I just love it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of that. I just love doing these interviews, and I'm so appreciative of all the clients that do our program really show up for themselves, invest in themselves, and I'm so glad you've gotten so much out of it. And if you're a woman and you're listening to this and you'd like to learn more about the coaching program, I'll pop a link in the show notes. You can book in a free call to have a chat and learn more. And thank you so much, Paige, and I will see you in the program.
Okay, thank you, Kitty.